What's up guys, Ruppy here bringing you the draft analysis video for my Columbus Swoo team for the aDrive Army Battle League in its third season as I join the Sinnoh region of battlers. Probably the most proper I've done that intro all week. You will see I kind of flubbed it up when I did the other two videos you guys are getting for the AABL this week, but anyway. Yes, the Columbus Swoo are making a return and hopefully this time things will be a lot better for us. One can hope, at least. Anyway. So, I'm going to be going over my Columbus Swoo team, the draft we had, and why I picked what I picked. I am going to note a few things about this league, though, before we get started, since you're probably looking over the thing off to the side and noticing a few things. So, let me explain. First of all, in regards to Z moves, since there are a lot of leagues that apparently have different rulings on it. The GBA, you have to have one designated Z Crystal user. The NPA is pretty much just whatever as far as Z moves go by the looks of things. In the aDrive Army Battle League, it is basically, you can use any mon can use a Z Crystal. The only rule is you have to use an offensive Z move. So no Z Conversion, no Z Belly Drum, no Z Sandstorm, none of those shenanigans. It's basically just, if you're going to use a Z move, it has to hit your opponent. Plain and simple. Another thing you've probably realized by now is the little mega tier there. Yes, this is kind of a tiered draft format, kind of like the National Pokemon Association did. The thing is, though, since we are playing this on Showdown, we decided there's no real need for an S tier. If it's basically overpowered, it got banned, so there's no Tapu Lele here, stuff like that. But since Showdown does have the option to allow for custom games, and as a result you are kind of able to bend the rules slightly as far as what's actually Sun and Moon legal, we kind of decided that as long as your team, other than potentially your Mega, is Sun and Moon legal, then you're free to do custom battle and be able to play that way. So we are allowing all existing Megas, even if they are not actually released in Sun and Moon just yet. So the option is definitely on the table there. So let's go ahead and get into my team, shall we, before I get to rambling on too in-depth here, because otherwise this video is going to go on a lot longer than it really should, and I'm kind of a bit late on recording this, and I want to get this done before work tonight, at least as far as recording. I'll get it up over the weekend. So, as far as the first round is concerned, I had a couple of different options for what I wanted. I basically had a plan in mind for this draft. I wanted to try something a little different than what I usually do for drafts, but I also wanted to kind of stick by my guns as well. So, I had a number of options. Some of them actually did go off the board, and honestly, I was kind of expecting them to, because if they didn't, because I had picked 14 out of 16. Good for even number rounds, but for odd number rounds, I kind of had to sit and wait, and yeah, it had a tendency to get kind of ugly. But one mon I was really looking at, as far as my plan was concerned, did happen to be my first round pick. And I really love this mod because of its versatility. It is not Victini, actually. I decided to give Victini a break from draft format for a while and try something a little different. That being Jirachi. Yes, everyone's favorite little quote-unquote hacks god. Even though that is not the reason I drafted it, I am not going to deny that the potential is at my disposal if I really see fit. And I definitely kind of freaked a few people out, especially if they thought Togekiss was going to be somewhere in my future draft plans, though I will tell you guys right now, Togekiss was not drafted, at least by my team, so no real need to worry there. But Jirachi, its versatility is actually about as good as Victini's, and it provides me a lot of uses. I can go especially offensive with it. I can definitely abuse Calm Mind if I want to, which is something Victini can't really do. I can go with a physical set, and obviously the threat of Thunder Wave Iron Head is there. This thing can set up Stealth Rocks. It's actually got really good defenses and a good defensive typing, being Steel Psychic. So I can definitely take a few more hits than, say, Victini perhaps. So Jirachi as a whole has a lot of uses for me, and I really like the fact that I was able to grab it right out of the gate, because it's going to serve me very well this season, I feel. As we wheel back around, I decided I didn't want to waste any time in taking my Mega, because I knew exactly which Mega I want. It's one of the Megas that tends to go first in the draft format anyway, and it pairs up really nicely with Jirachi, especially with what I had planned. So for my second pick, I grabbed Mega Venusaur. Yep, everybody's favorite overly bulky plant monster thing. You just gotta love what Mega Venusaur brings to the table. It's got some good offenses. It's very good defensively. It has a way to heal itself. It can leech seed things. Along with Synthesis, obviously. Grass Stab, Poison Stab is really nice. It does seem a bit limited in what it can do offensively, to some degree. But what this thing can do, it's hard to deny there's really not a whole lot that adequately stands up to it, depending on what you do run. And between it and Jirachi being able to tank some hits for one another, it definitely works to my benefit to have these two on the same team. Moving on, we reached the third round, and I started to see some signs forming that someone else in the league was looking at a very similar idea to what I wanted to do, though I think their team ended up a little more blatant about it, I guess, than mine was. So I wanted to kind of cut that off at the pass, because I knew if I didn't take this mon now, there was a good chance I was probably going to lose out on it. So to that end, I decided to fill up one of my tier 3 slots by grabbing Pelipper. Yup, the so-called new Rain God is a part of my team. Now, I'm going to stress right now that I kind of actually went more of the Lord Envy route for the most part on this. I have a team that functions really well in rain, but it doesn't necessarily need rain in order to be successful. And Pelipper on its own does a lot for me other than just bringing up the rain. It's got some good bulk to it. It can defog hazards away. Getting Skull Burns would definitely help out a lot. Hurricane is a nice option to have, especially in the rain, because it would never miss. Pelipper actually works very nicely in conjunction with Mega Venusaur and Jirachi, I feel, and forms a nice little core for my team that I can abuse if necessary, more from a defensive standpoint, as they can each individually handle their offensive tactics pretty well. And on the wheel back around, continuing with the idea of if I didn't grab this mon now, I was probably going to lose it to the other potential rain team forming, I went ahead and filled my tier 2 with arguably the best rain sweeper there is, Kingdra. Now I call Kingdra the best rain sweeper, but the fact of the matter is, it doesn't necessarily need rain to function all that well. Let me reword that. It doesn't need rain to function, but it definitely does do very well in rain. Swift Swim obviously works to my benefit. Being able to make this thing super fast, it hits really hard, it can be physical or special, which is really nice. If I don't choose to run rain, then Sniper is always on the table. If I really want to go that route, I can bring Critdra, as much as I'm not a fan of hacks, but I mean, I got Kingdra and I got Jirachi, so there's that. But Kingdra's another versatile pick. It has a few really nice offensive options from both ends of the spectrum. Being Water Dragon definitely limits the weaknesses that thing has. So, Kingdra's definitely a good addition to the team. I know I've got 2 water types now, but I'm not too concerned about it because honestly, if you're gonna run rain, you probably should have a Swift Swim sweeper just in case. It's generally the smart way to go. I have tried rain teams without going that route before, and yeah, it got a little messy. At least the intent was there, though. Moving on, before I get too rambling about stuff you guys probably don't really particularly care for. Next up, I was kind of torn on what I actually wanted to do next, and Honestly, I don't remember the exact order I drafted some of these later mons in, so they might be a bit off. So, actually, you know what? I'm just gonna list them off in the order I believe I drafted them. It's probably wrong, but because I don't have the actual draft order in front of me anymore. But as long as I explain the mons, I think you guys will get the point. The next mon I believe I ended up taking was filling my other tier 3 with Jolteon. And Jolteon definitely is a big benefit to this team. I really wanted an electric type, especially one with Volt Absorb, because obviously Pelipper does not want to deal with electric attacks whatsoever. And while I know Venusaur can sponge them, I didn't want to rely solely on Mega Venusaur to be able to handle electric types, and plus being able to drop a few Thunders in the rain is also very nice. Originally, I was looking at Thundurus Therian for this role, because Thundurus Therian definitely functioned very well in rain and with the team I was putting together. But unfortunately, it got sniped from me. This is the point in the draft where my plan kind of started falling apart a tiny bit, because I was starting to actually get sniped on some of my picks, and I was getting a little more frustrated with it. All in all, though, I still like how my team came out. But Jolteon, I think, actually does function a little better than Thundurus Therian. Yes, Thundurus does have some better offenses to it, but Jolteon is ridiculously fast, which is a very nice thing to have. A very fast electric type, and Jolteon, especially if I run choice specs on it, can still hit things, even with a life orb, it still hits things really hard. Which is always a benefit, especially when you're running a rain team. And Volt Absorb does allow me the option to be able to eat up electric attacks, give me a complete electric immunity, and be able to potentially turn it against other Pokemon. I was kind of torn on my next pick, to be honest. There were a number of different options I was considering for this team. And ultimately, I guess I decided to pull from some inspiration from Lord Envy's draft again for the GBA. And I decided to grab Dragonite. And it was really hard not to justify taking Dragonite over some of the other options I was considering, which I believe were the likes of Volcanion and Skarmory, which I believe Skarmory actually went undrafted in our region at least, which is kind of surprising in and of itself. But I felt Dragonite had a lot more use to my team. It is a very versatile dragon type, being one of the very first dragon type pretty much. Multi-scale is a phenomenal ability for it to use. Obviously, in the rain, I can abuse Hurricane if I see fit. I can drop Thunder on people if I so desire. Physically, obviously, I can run Dragon Dance. Extreme Speed is definitely an option to be able to abuse Priority if necessary, especially with Tapu Lele banned, so there's no Psychic terrain to worry about. To be fair, Lele is kind of broken in draft format as it is, and not just because of Psychic terrain. But, well, I guess that's part of the reason, but let's get off the Lele for a moment. Dragonite does a lot for me. It doesn't necessarily fill too much in the way of holes that I was having, but especially with the likes of Mega Venusaur and Jirachi, and especially if I get Rain Up, I think Dragonite is going to function very well for my team. I believe with my next pick, I decided to take that Dragonite filled up one of my free slots. I believe I wanted to spend points on another free slot at this point because I was trying to think of ways to basically help bolster my team both offensively and defensively at this point. Especially since there were a few other glaring threats in forming on some other teams that I really wanted to take care of. So I believe with my next pick, I decided to grab a fighting type to kind of help mitigate some of the damage. Especially since a fighting type would pair quite nicely with Jirachi in handling any dark types or ghost types that Jirachi might struggle with, even with its steel typing. So to that end, I picked up Mienshao. Mienshao is a very underrated fighting type in my opinion. It has a lot going for it. It's one of the few mons that does get high jump kick, and it has the reckless ability to be able to make high jump kick even stronger. It gets a few nice offensive options as well, like it can U-turn out, it's got knockoff, it can stone edge things. that's just... I mean, it gets Drain Punch, too, which can help it recover some HP. It has the Regenerator ability, which I know Mineshell's defenses aren't the greatest. But Regenerator, especially if you're going to plan on U-turning out a lot of the time, Regenerator can definitely be a solid option to help keep Mineshell healthy for when you need it most. So, Mineshell brings a really good offensive presence to my team that is very much appreciated. And to fill the defensive portion, I believe next I decided to go with a very underrated option in and of itself, and one that really should be looked at a little more often, I feel. Type Null. Yes, my first tier 4 pick, and quite a bizarre one, you might believe, but let's be honest here. Silvali's great. Even if in this particular league, and I know in a lot of draft format leagues as well, to help try to make Silvally a little more fair, you basically have to either stick with the normal typing or declare a specific type for your team. But what I like most about Null is, other than being slower, it has the exact same stats Silvally does, base 95 across the board. And if you put an Eviolite on this thing, oh boy does this thing become a royal pain to take down. Type Null is not something a lot of people I feel would enjoy fighting just because it's quite bulky. Its only healing option to be able to get health back is Rest, unfortunately. But I mean, I've got Wish support in Jirachi, and Null's definitely got a fair amount of offensive options to smack some stuff really hard with, to take advantage of both of its base 95 offenses as well, if I see fit. Null is kind of a versatile defensive monster that I think is really going to help patch up a few holes in my team, especially since any fighting type attacks that could come its way, I've got Mega Venusaur to eat those up, or even Pelipper for that matter, by virtue of its flying type, especially if they're on the physical side. With my next pick, this one I'm still not sure on, but I'm sure it'll probably come in handy a few, at least at one point, maybe another, but I think this is still a good pickup, and I'm quite happy with it. Maybe that'll change, but I want to be able to give it a chance first. My next pick, I decided to fill my tier 5 by taking Lantern. Now, why on earth would I take Lantern, you ask? I mean, it's a water-electric type, which I've got much better options for both as it is. Plain and simple, Lantern offers my team a few options that none of them do. Yes, I know it does not get Swift Swim, but it's got some nice bulk to it, especially on the special side. And it gets two very useful abilities in Water Absorb and Volt Absorb. So it's a second Volt Absorber, and it also allows me Water Absorb just in case I have a water type that might potentially cause me some issues trying to turn my rain against me. Lantern can just sit in there and kind of make that a moot point for the most part. Plus, Lantern also does happen to get Heal Bell, which is a nice option to have for my team. It can fire off some decent attacks, it can get Skull Burns, it can Bolt Switch out, so that's another, member of my ever-growing Bolt turn core I can abuse if I see fit. I'm still a bit iffy on it because I'm still debating. I have a few reasons why I grabbed it, but those are more for specific teams, really. But all in all, I think Lantern might actually be a solid answer. It just depends on how I feel certain matchups are going to go, but I think Lantern's going to have some use for me this season. I really do. And on the way back around, I decided to fill my other tier 4 pick. I realized at this point, I needed a fairy type. And a lot of the good fairy type options were already off the board at this point, especially a few that I were looking at, because we were getting pretty late in the draft at this point. But the one I did pick, I think with this team, given the right scenario, I can probably get this mon to do a lot of damage. And that would be Slurpuff, fresh out of the oven and ready to devour people's souls. I mean, just look at how happy Slurpuff is up on the screen there. Obviously, I have Belly Drum at my disposal, which I can then abuse with Citrus Berry to activate Unburden as well. And Slurpuff is just going to start beating everything up quite badly from there. I can run a special set as well. It's not too great given its stats compared to its more physical counterpart with Belly Drum. But Slurpuff does offer me a number of different options I can abuse if I see fit. And basically, if I wear opposing teams down to a good enough point where I can actually safely bring this thing in and get a Belly Drum off, then what is actually going to stop this thing from kind of shooting up the kills leaderboard? Let's be honest here. It's going to be situational at best, I know, because when people see Slurpuff, they know what to expect. But I truly think Slurpuff can still thrive despite that. And it does finish off my Fairy Dragon Steel Core it formed alongside Kingdra and Dragonite, as well as Jirachi. Now at this point, I had 2 free picks left, and I was kind of torn on what I wanted to use them on. One thing I really wanted at this point was a hazard remover, and one that could also set hazards up would be nice, but hazard removal was definitely what I really needed the most, because I only have 1 hazard setter up to this point in Jirachi. I have 2 defoggers in Pelipper and Dragonite, but Dragonite's not really going to be using defog all that often because it probably feels more like a better offensive option in most scenarios. And Pelipper being my only form of hazard remover was kind of a problem. So I was looking at a number of different options. Unfortunately, every single one of them was kind of taken off the board at this point, and I was getting quite angry about it. But what I did find, I'm happy with, because again, it doesn't necessarily have to function as a hazard setter and hazard removal, but it's an option you don't really expect to run them, and it actually can do it pretty nicely if you set it up correctly. And the one I'm talking about in this scenario is Archeops. Yup, the bizarre little prehistoric bird that is probably better known for just destroying everything in its path as long as you don't knock it into below half health, so Defeatist activates and cuts all its stats. But even still, Archeops does provide my team with that, obviously, so it's a strong offensive presence right then and there, but it can set up rocks, it can defog them away, and when you combine some of the offensive powers this thing has on top of it, it is a bit frail, yes, but I still think Archeops can get the job done as necessary for whatever role I needed to fill. Now, we were down to my last pick, and I had a few things I was debating on, but I really honestly wasn't sure what I wanted to put in this scenario. Just because at this point, some of my plans had completely fallen apart, and I didn't really know how I wanted to proceed. But, despite that, I still think I got a pretty solid, pick for my last one. It might seem a bit weird considering I do have Rain I'm running, but I think with or without Rain, this mon will still thrive quite nicely on my team, depending on the scenario. I decided to use my last pick on Magmortar. I know, it sounds weird having a fire type on complete a fire, water, grass core on a Rain team, but hear me out. Magmortar hits like a truck, plain and simple. It's got some pretty nice mixed offenses, so I can abuse some things on the physical and special side as necessary. Flame Charge is there to help patch up its speed if I need to. It can run Earthquake to catch a few mons off guard. Obviously, outside of Rain, its Fire-type moves are going to hit stupidly hard. It also gets some Electric-type moves that I can abuse as well. Magmortar is a bit of a mixed bag, but I still think it fills a spot on my team quite nicely to kind of help deal with some things that might give me some trouble in the long run. So, there you go, that is my draft analysis. I know it's not as good as it probably could have been. I am a bit pressed for time, but I still think I gave a pretty good explanation for why I picked everything that I did, and I'm definitely excited to see how this team is going to work out once we get into using it. So, with all that said, thank you guys so very much for watching. I've been Ruppy, and I will see you guys for Season 3 of the aDrive Army Battle League, and we will see if my Columbus Swoo can at long last nail down a championship and have another solid draft format performance. I will see you guys next time. Take care.